3 keys to reducing mana problems, not getting mana screwed, not getting mana flooded, getting to play Magic, your game, without getting mana screwed. Welcome in, much love, Trav here. And importantly, take control of your results. A lot of people, and we've talked about it, just don't want to take responsibility for mana screw, mana flood. They want to blame it all on luck, and that's how they play life as well. External forces, the government, the economy. Oh, bad luck is why. Well, actually, there's a lot of things you can do to protect yourself. There's a lot of things you can do to influence your results. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to take some ownership of that with 3 keys for how to reduce this problem in Magic. And I go real in depth in this. A lot of you have read this in my ebook, Deck Crafting Mastery, Deck Building Wizardry. A lot of y'all are in that group. So you can check that out. But I'm going to give you all the cliff notes on this right now. So the first key to reducing mana flood and mana screw is having a good mana base. Playing the right numbers of lands, playing the right numbers of color lands as much as possible. Well, duh, Trav. Well, like, a lot of people don't get this. They think that, a lot of people don't get this. They have bad mana bases. Bad mana bases, bad decks get mana screwed, right? So some people play too many colors. A lot of y'all play too many colors. You're trying to splash a 3rd or 4th color when the mana doesn't work and you get mana screwed. You got yourself mana screwed. You know, there's a reason that there's an advantage to being a monocolored deck sometimes, as you don't have to deal with that. It means playing the right number of lands. Sometimes we see people play too few. They're playing too few lands, they get mana screwed. Sometimes you play too many lands for your mana cost of your deck, right? So that's where we need to start. Like, okay, your mana screwed, mana flooded, you have mana problems. Well, maybe your mana base fucking sucks, bro. Like, come on, right? That's where we need to start, at least. So there's some math to that. How many mana sources do you want? Well, as many as possible, colored sources, without getting flooded. It's a little bit trickier and limited because you don't have any dual lands outside of the one you picked in draft. Oh, maybe you should have picked those, right, when they came around the table. So for more on that, check out the ebook. So number 1, just have a good mana base, right? Have a good mana base. Not too many lands, not too few, not too many colors. That's not all, though. Let's move on. So the second thing is to have fixing, manipulation, to have looting, right? So for instance, you have a card that says draw a card, discard a card. What that's going to do is, if you have too few lands, it lets you pitch a land and pick up a new one. If you have not enough lands, it lets you pitch a spell and pick up a new one, right? So you have cards like Ancient Stirrings or Serum Visions, Ponder, things that look at the top of your deck and dig you through to find that land or find that spell. A card that can turn into a spell, like Cycling, things that can turn into spells or turn into lands depending on what you need. That stuff will do a lot to reducing mana problems because it lets you swing back in the other direction. If you have too many lands, you can start pitching them and going for spells. And you have too many spells, it lets you start pitching them, go for lands, and then once you have enough lands, go back to the spells, right? That takes tremendous control over the game, tremendous control over the luck, and it's not something you would notice necessarily, but it makes a big difference. So in Limited, you have the chance to play cards that loot, and they come around late, maybe, or maybe they don't. You have the chance to play cyclers or various effects, things that will do this. And Constructed, it's the same. You have a lot of option, like, oh, you got mana screwed a lot? You know, maybe you're not working hard enough, right? You're not playing spells that reduce it. You want smoothers, right? You want to play some smoothers. You're gonna have a good mana base, and you want smoothers. And here's the third key to reducing mana problems, is playing cards that have flexible mana costs. What do I mean by this? Okay, so for instance, you have, from the new set, you have a 1 mana 1/1, and you can bring it back as a 4/4 for 6 mana. That's nice because if you're mana flooded, you have something to do. You're mana screwed, you have something to do. There's a lot of cards with flexible costs. A mana land, for instance. A land that taps for mana, and then later you can put mana into it for some effect. It becomes a creature, right? If you're mana screwed, hey, it's a land. If you're mana flooded, hey, you can put your mana in this thing, right? A card like Fireball is a decent example. Play it for 2 mana, take out a small creature, You can play it for 10 mana, go to the face, end the game, right? It gives you something to do if you're mana flooded or if you're mana screwed. So you want to look for these in draft. Recently they have Embalm, Externalize, and those are great examples of flexible cost cards, cycling. There's so many though, but Walking Ballista, you know, X spells. And you do this and you have things that you can do at less mana, you have things you can do at more mana. Your ability to play scales up as you get more mana, you get more flooded, you draw too many lands, you can at least do things with them. So the result is, if you do this, you have a good mana base, you play the right number of lands, you play the right colored spells, you have a curve that's doing things at different costs, unless you do things for a lot of mana as well as a little mana, so you're not going to get flooded or screwed too much. You've got manipulation, cards that let you filter or loot or smooth or dig, so that you can end up with the right number of lands, the right number of spells, and the result is you have no mana screw, no mana flood. Now here's the interesting thing before we tie this back to tie this into life. So what's kind of interesting is a lot of the good decks do this. A lot of the bad decks don't. A lot of the high variance decks can't afford to though, because they're trying to be so fast, right? What I mean is, if you're playing all these great mana fixing and manipulation, and you're playing flexible cost cards, you're probably leaving a little bit of power on the table because you're taking time off to develop, or you're paying extra mana for effect for the flexibility, right? You're downgrading power a little bit, but you're reducing variance. So what you're going to find is you're still going to lose to people who just nut out on you because they're not even bothering to fix things. You know, they're playing 14 lands and limited so that they can just draw all spells and gas you out, and you'll still lose to that. But what you'll find is, you do this, you just don't get mana screwed or mana flooded as much, and your opponents still do, and you're able to scoop up free wins. And over the long term, it makes a big difference, right? You don't get mana screwed, you don't get mana flooded as much. You may have to sacrifice a little bit of power, but you look at most of the top tournament decks, they're pretty good about doing this. Now, tie it into life, because man, Magic for good. I want to make this useful, I want to make this helpful. It's not enough for me to just, here are some key tips to Magic, you know. I also want to shift your paradigm and thinking, like, things you thought were outside of control are under your control, right? Mana screw, mana flood, mana problems, what can go wrong, here's how to prevent them, right? Your issues with career, with health, with relationships, right? That's under your control as well, and all those subjects are just as nuanced, and you can do things to protect yourself and do things to put yourself, reduce mana flood, reduce mana screw, right? It's not super obvious, but I just want you to think right now that, hey, this stuff is under my control. This power is under my control. There's a lot of things that I can do. I'm still going to lose. I'm still going to get mana problems, but I'm at least going to take responsibility and try my hardest to reduce, so I can move forward and win more, get the things that I want, and not get fucked over that much, right? No one likes to get fucked over. So let's not get fucked over. Let's play the right land base. Let's play the right spell base. And let's play flexible cards. So hope you find this useful. Again, the ebook goes into a lot of detail and has charts and images chock full of that stuff. And those of you who want coaching, I do that, the mastermind program. Check that out. There'll be a link to that below. Appreciate you all. Much love. Hope you find this useful. And leave a comment what you found useful about this, or what you're going to do to reduce mana screw, mana flood. Much love. Peace. Speak soon.